Hey, so I'm getting my annual physical last week, and
Nice.
you guys have to go through this.
A couple weeks ago, I did the same thing.
Did you use a real doctor this time?
So during my physical, I hear a snap.
Oof.
And I say, everything okay, Doc? And he says, not really. Mercury is in Uranus right now. And I said, well, I don't go for that astrology mumbo jumbo. He says, me neither, but my thermometer just broke.
Not funny, man. Not funny.
A little funny.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Going fantastic.
We have some scary and peculiar and downright funny stories today. So let's just get into it. The first one is about SolarWinds. All versions of Web Help Desk should be upgraded to 12.8.3, and then the hot fix should be installed.
They've never been in the news before.
Yeah, or hear me out. Just stop using SolarWinds.
Oh my God.
Friends
no,
don't let friends.
It's tough because if you have a piece of software like this that needs... These types of software, like help desk software that allow you to take over a computer or a server or whatever remotely, help greatly in managing massive environments, right? Large companies, or if you're a managed service provider.
At least the hackers think so.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's convenient, right? I don't have to go sit at the keys. I can go, I can do it remotely, which is nice. The problem is when you need this level of access, of course, it's going to be a target. We see it all the time. It's not just SolarWinds. There are other products out there. It's just SolarWinds gets all of the notoriety.
That's right.
I mean, are we entering the phase where companies actually pay attention to this? Because if you have a red team, either a client, a vendor that you use, or hire a red team, we know some larger companies have red teams on staff. Security can't be an afterthought. That's the lesson I think we need to take away from this.
So, I agree, but I think it's tough, right? You purchase SolarWinds to help manage your organization. Mm-hmm. Is the onus on you to hire a red team to tear SolarWinds apart?
It's on SolarWinds to test their stuff before it gets out the door and to constantly be doing bug bounties and constantly be working to evaluate the potential risks and close the doors.
Well, and unfortunately, this is a Java deserialization bug, which we've talked about deserialization bugs before. This would easily have been picked up, I say easily, but this would have been picked up in a code review, in a thorough code review.
By a good team.
You would have seen, hey, you're deserializing an object and you have no idea what it is. And the risk here is somebody could execute and get RCE at, godlike privileges on the box. It's tough too. I mean, all the pen tests, even recent pen tests we were in the middle of this week and last week, we're doing a pen test for a customer. I won't mention the customer's name. And the customer has software they've purchased that helps them manage their business. And we end up tearing apart their entire business through this software, right? It's not something the customer did, right? Customer did the right things and implemented the way they should. But the software they purchased is completely full of holes, right? And we, within a couple of hours, had complete access to the entire network and all financials and all sorts of stuff.
But the world doesn't care how the hackers get in, just that they got in.
Right. But it's like there should definitely be more laws around how do we hold those software companies accountable, not only in the chance or in the off chance that like a ransomware happens, right? Ransomware happens, they find it goes through SolarWinds. Yes, SolarWinds might pay a fine. But it should be like, hey, if we find, red team finds an issue with your software, maybe you get a discount on the software for that year. We essentially just paid for a red team for you,
right?
As a customer, right? So maybe we get next year's software for free.
It just occurred to me, it's a good thing our podcast is free. We're not on the hook for anything. Yeah. All right. So that one is good now. We move on?
Yep.
Okay. So Microsoft is in the news again. August updates cause Windows Server boot issues and freezes.
Is this giving us flashbacks of CrowdStrike?
Kind of.
I mean, when the thing doesn't boot, it's a whole nother level of problem. It's one thing if the printer doesn't print or the mouse doesn't work. if the server doesn't boot, you're down to like real troubleshooting. A lot of times where you have to be physically near the system.
In this one, it turns out to be a Windows Server 2019 security update problem. So it was a security update that caused the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. And whenever you're doing security patching, usually it's at a pretty low level, right? And that's why we saw the CrowdStrike issue was unfortunately such a big deal. It wasn't like a normal piece of software like you install, I don't know, some, SQL Server. If you install SQL Server on your Windows 2019 server and you patch it and there's an issue, so what? SQL doesn't start. And that sucks, but it doesn't stop your computer from booting.
Or if you have a web browser and it doesn't display certain web pages, it doesn't render the whole computer useless.
Right, exactly. But when you start talking about really low-level patches, anything to, antivirus, endpoint detection, whether it's Microsoft security, usually that's kernel level, right? So it's in the ring 0 of programming, right? Where you have access to the system at a level, such a level you could impact, and usually do impact booting the system.
Yeah.
So
it would be like if Elon Musk wanted to implant a chip in your amygdala instead of your cerebellum. Oh, I forgot how to breathe. Oops.
Yeah, it's in the water. I know it's in the water.
I haven't heard anything about that recently. Oh, is it Neuralink? It's
because everybody died.
Wow. And now we're going to get sued by Elon. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So for some more jocularity, this is a great story. Man sentenced for hacking state registry to fake his own death.
And for a very bad reason. For a really sleazeball reason. What was he trying to avoid, Dwayne?
He was trying to avoid child support.
Oh, what a
dad of the year.
Dude hacks into the Hawaiian death registry system using the username and password of a physician living in another state and created a case of his own death. Wow. There you go.
There's so many questions here. So he did that, and then he disappeared from government databases as a live person. But then what did he do? Did he flee and go try to live in exile somewhere?
No, you don't exist anymore, right? You wiped you're completely. Actually, you guys have seen Hackers the movie? Yeah,
yeah.
That was the end game. They were both hacking this FBI agent, and they were one-upping each other. And the way it ended was Dade literally hacked into the registry, and the agent was now deceased. And they were like, "Oh, game over. You're done, right?" So this guy doesn't exist anymore. He can't get a pension. He can't get a job. He can't, right? So what do you do at that point? Well, the next obvious thing is you steal an identity.
So, but it doesn't say anything about that in this story.
Maybe he hadn't thought that far ahead.
Well, I don't know. It says, if you read a little bit, he says, he used a false social security number to apply for a credit card and a debit account at a financial institution. So my guess is because they were saying he got bagged for not only hacking into this registry system, but also identity theft. And that's where I was like, wait, what identity theft? So he needed a new identity, right? Yeah. He just killed himself. Mm-hmm. So he apparently stole one.
The irony is that the total damage from his actions, including unpaid child support, are estimated to be more than $195,000.
He's in a worse place, a way worse place.
He's way worse now.
Well done.
Well done, sir.
On a side note, we tracked down this hacker who broke into the Hawaiian registry of death and. It's tough. There are a lot of people who are out there who are really smart in computers, but then don't necessarily have street savvy or morals. In this particular case, he used a physician's username and password from another state. So probably doesn't know this guy, probably didn't just garner it off of a Post-it note in the doctor's office when he was there. My guess is that username and password was probably leaked out into the dark web. That would be my guess.
I thought that when people wanted to steal an identity, it's easier to steal the identity of somebody who is deceased, isn't it?
So it used to be easier to steal the identity of someone who's deceased.
Well, then he could steal his own identity.
I was going to say that would have been the creme de la creme. He steals his own identity back.
Right.
But
for $5.
Now it's actually a lot easier to steal. Criminal career advice. If you're going to steal an identity, it's actually easier to do it for someone living.
Well, then there's a chance that they'll find out.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I guess in his case, he could probably just manufacture a new identity, right? Because he's super hacker guy.
So
maybe that's what he tried to do.
Creating a person from scratch is tough.
If you steal someone's identity and you don't do financial fraud, like if you take out a credit card in their name and pay it.
Yeah. You never know.
I mean, some people would know it. I'd probably notice because I do check my credit.
Sure.
I have a credit freeze, so I'd know you wouldn't be able to get the credit card in the first place. But most people who aren't that attentive, they wouldn't notice. And if their credit score didn't go down, they might say, oh, I don't remember that credit card, but it's paid off. So
now, do you have a credit freeze because you froze it or because somebody else froze it?
No, I froze it with all three. Actually, did you guys talk about that last week?
This is a good point. We did. Yeah.
So I froze mine like a couple of years ago. You know how paranoid I am, right? So I won't say I've gone to the point of like rigging the shotgun to the door, but I've thought about it. So I'm still rocking lockdown mode, and I've had frozen credit, and all my accounts, when I call a bank, I have to give them a separate password so they'll recognize me. Because I had somebody try to do identity theft to me a couple of years ago, and I was not having it. And I was already ready for them.
Do identity theft on you.
So you can put a credit freeze on, and then if you need to,
you just unfreeze it.
You just unfreeze it and then freeze it again.
You can temporary thaw. So the three credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, all will let you create a free account. Now they will bother you every click of the way. Would you like to buy? Would you like to buy? Would you like to buy a plan? How about we do it for you? We buy a plan. Yeah. You just have to stay strong and say no, and then they'll let you do it for free. And then you maintain those accounts. If you're doing it for somebody under 14, you have to send a physical letter to them after you create their account. But it's worth it, especially with that breach that we talked about, that you guys talked about last week.
Yep.
Everyone should be freezing their accounts.
Oh, absolutely.
And, that's the modern thing. I'm
going to look into that.
Please do.
Yep.
Absolutely do it. Actually, we should look up and see if we can find your info in the breach.
I'm sure we can. Every social security number we've checked has been accurate.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we've checked a bunch.
All right. Well, this seems like a good place to take a break. So we'll be right back after these very important messages. And we're back. You're listening to Security This Week. I'm Carl Franklin. That's Patrick Hines and Dwayne LaFlotte. And we just got done talking about the man who faked his own death and had to pay for it dearly.
Oof.
So we're going to be talking about some near-field communications stuff in the second half of the show. This first one is about N-Gate Android malware that uses an NFC chip to steal credit card data. What is this all about?
Yeah, so NFCs, or NFC, near field communications, is what you would do when you go to the store and you pay with Apple Pay or whatever, right? You hold your phone within a couple centimeters of the reader. It picks up your card. And what's happening there is your phone is emulating the chip that's in your credit card, right? So the chip that's in your credit card gets powered by touching the reader, right? There's no battery in your credit card, right? All it is it's an inductive loop of wire and then an integrated circuit chip, a couple resistors, whatever. And when you touch the card to the reader, very similarly to the way your phone has touch contact charging, where you can just lay it on a charger and it starts charging, same thing. The card gets electrified, if you will, and starts broadcasting your credit card data, right?
Yeah.
So same thing here. Your phone then has the ability to broadcast that same signal using near field communications. What this particular interesting hack is, usually if you install an application on your phone, you would have to jump through a lot of hoops to give it access to NFC, give it access to your credit card, that sort of stuff. So there's a sort of workaround, an exploit, if you will.
In Android.
Yeah, in Android, where an app that's installed has the ability to make a call because of the way it's being installed as a web APK, which we won't go into, but it can call back to the phone and get access to the hardware APIs without really setting off any alarms.
So this is about installing the wrong app.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this is lots of people then go, oh my gosh, what should I click on or not click on in the store? Is there apps I should worry about? Is there a list of apps that have been compromised? That sort of stuff. The way this is being distributed right now is it's being distributed by sending you a malicious text. Or, through advertising, tricking someone on clicking on a link, and it's being installed over the web, not through the store. Wow. So that's really, just be careful.
Phishing.
In this particular case, be careful what happens when you click on something and you install based on what you're seeing on the screen. So if you get a text message that somebody says, hey, install this app for your Bank of America or whatever, like that, they're never going to text you.
No.
It'd be great if they were that communicative, but they're not. They don't want to talk to you.
Every time they talk to you, it costs them money. They're not going to talk to you unless they have to.
They're not talking to you. Absolutely. So if you get that link, you click on the link, it installs over the web. It installs the APK on your phone. And then at that point, through a successive process of every time you open it, it asks you to upgrade and all that good stuff. It installs this this way of stealing the cards. Now, what's interesting about this, you guys have heard of the Flipper Zero, right?
I think so. That rings a bell. Tell us about it anyway.
Yeah. Tiny little toy-looking device that can do all sorts of neat things like clone credit cards.
It looks like a Tamagotchi.
It does. If you're old enough to know what a Tamagotchi is.
They're coming back.
They are not.
Those are the electronic pets from Japan.
From the 80s? The 80s?
90s, I think.
90s, maybe?
90s. Yeah.
So anyways, it's this tiny little device where I can take a credit card and I can clone it, and then I can replay it if I want to. So I can take that signal that was my card would generate, and I can keep replaying that signal to pay.
And
for
you've
things.
done this with hotel room keys. You've done this with credit cards. I've seen you do it. It's faster with credit cards than with.
Oh, it's super fast with a credit card. I can clone a credit card in seconds, just by contact.
So if you ever see Dwayne as your waiter, worry.
Well, there's been a spate in Connecticut of card skimming at retail locations.
This is exactly what that is. Yeah. If I had it in one hand, I take your card and just pass it over my hand. It'll happen in a second.
It's fast.
So one of them happened in New London.
Yep.
At a grocery store, not one that I go to, but a grocery store in New London, Connecticut, and all over the state they've been happening.
They're putting a clip on the skimmer so they can pull it off.
I don't know exactly how they do it, but the news people said if you see anything suspicious that looks like it's overlaid on top of a keypad, the best thing to do is actually tap your card.
Yes.
But if you stick it inside, there's a chance that it could get skimmed.
If Dwayne built it, that won't save you.
Yeah, tapping is not going to save you any. So what I also do, like if you go to a gas station, and you're going to pay they don't have a near field reader. You have to slide the card in. Literally pull on it. Like the card reader that you slide your card into, just give it a tug. If it comes off, don't slide your card into it. They are really. Yeah. So what happens is, like, let's say I'm going to deploy a card skimmer. I'll go to a gas station and I'll put an overlay right on top of the card reader. It looks identical to the regular card reader, and it's super thin, and it just slides over, and it has contact wires that read the card as it goes in and out. So if you go to the gas station and just like literally where you slide your card in, grab it and try and pull on it, and if it moves, because they're rock solid, you're not pulling it off. But if you can budge it, pull it off, then you don't want to slide your card into it. So the
skimmers come off.
Yes, the skimmers will come off because they need to be able to grab them quickly when they come back later.
Sure.
Because these don't transmit to the internet, right? It's not like they have a cellular card. So they need to go and actually retrieve the skimmer to get the cards.
So they didn't say that on the news. So, you don't get the full story.
That's right.
You got to listen to Security This Week, kids.
Hacker advice.
I know, right?
No, this is hacker protection advice.
I could tell you all the ways to get skimmer. Now, if it were me, I would actually probably add a wireless chip and then... That way I could get the numbers. Well, you didn't have to go there, Dwayne. Really. Later, but
we're trying to help the people.
It's okay.
The technology is getting smaller and smaller.
Oh, it's awesome.
The things that you need to do.
Yep. All right, so be careful about that. And I guess it's is Endgate the name of the app, or is it the malware that has been infected from the the social engineering thing?
Yeah, it's the name of the malware. So the Endgate malware is really what it's doing. Is exploiting this loophole of, because it's installed, because you've requested to install outside of the store, it doesn't have to actually hold to restrictions that the store has sometimes.
All right. The next story. Google fixes 9th Chrome 0 day exploited in attacks this year. Whew. Google just can't catch a break.
I mean, that sounds really bad, but Google's been really good about like finding and fixing these things as soon as they can. Software is going to have 0 days. All software has 0 days. So I don't know that this is a sensationalism or, it's not a ding on Chrome, I don't think.
Yeah. Okay.
Every piece of what you should be careful of is the software that hasn't had a security fix this year.
Yeah.
Because they're not looking.
Wow.
Yep.
And a lot of these, we say there was 9 of them. A lot of them have been discovered by researchers.
Right. Which means they're patched before they're published.
Yeah, exactly. So some of, and a lot of them I think were actually found in Pwnone, which is awesome.
Now it does say that it's the 9th exploited in attacks this year.
Mm-hmm.
So that maybe there's 20 of them and 9 of them were not fixed before they were out in the wild.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times you have researchers sort of taking what they're seeing happen in the wild and then discovering the bugs, but not actually reverse engineering the exploit. So, chicken or egg thing. But yeah, if they actively see it being exploited, then you could reverse engineer the code for the most part and try and figure out what's going on. But I know like CVE 2024-2887, which was a WebAssembly issue, that was actually a Pwnone discovery.
Interesting.
So some of these they picked up in Pwnone.
Oh, you know what? At the end of the article, it says that it's the 9th patched by Google, either exploited in the wild or at the Pwn2Own hacking contest.
Oh,
so they're kind of like it's kind of clickbaity.
Yep.
It is a little clickbaity.
Yep.
Who would do that?
Pwn2Own's awesome. I know, right? Clickbait.
Yeah, we like Pwn2Own.
Yeah, that's like the nerd Olympics. I'd actually love at some point. I got to go to Pwn2Own and watch it all go down. But
Okay, Windows 0 day attack linked to North Korea's Lazarus APT. First of all, what's an APT?
Advanced Persistent Threat. Basically, it's any group that will come after you and keep coming after you. It's typically associated with hacktivists, with organizations that aren't looking for a quick hit. They're looking to actually make a mark. So governments, very, very well associated with governments.
State.
Yeah, they're state sponsored.
What does this Lazarus group do?
They make money for North Korea. North Korea's got a problem with foreign currency reserves, and so a big part of their budget is reportedly from the hacking activities. They'll actually have people go and apply for jobs in the West, and they'll give them 10% of what they make and keep the rest for the state. So they're looking to raise money and cause damage.
Wow. So I guess what can we do about that? Is that just something that is going to be patched, or? Oh
yeah. There's a patch for this.
Okay.
It's being tracked as CVE 2024-38193. Window, if you're interested, it's the Windows ancillary function driver for WinSock elevation of privilege vulnerabilities.
Oh my God.
That's a mouthful.
And just so that you know, listeners,
I think we talked about this one.
WinSock is at the base of every single connection you make on the internet.
Yeah. Whether
it's your email app or a web browser or anything in the web, WinSock is the TCP/IP implementation for Windows. Yeah.
So it's interesting. If you look at the breakdown of the CVE by Microsoft from August 13th, it says impact elevation of privileges. Okay, so you get an elevation of privileges. You go from normal user to system, actually. So highest level privileges you possibly could. But if you take a look at their base score, they say attack vector is local. Okay, so the code has to run locally because it's a privilege escalation. Mm-hmm. Attack complexity is low. which makes me super interested if there's a POC out there.
Do we just
privileges
call
required
dumb?
low? No, it's just they.
I'm okay with it.
I know, right? No, it's interesting that the attack complexity is low. I would think exploiting something like WinSock generally is a little bit more complicated. So maybe they're just saying the attack complexity as in everybody has, this particular version potentially of WinSock, whereas it's not like the stars have to align and you have to have all of this different type of software.
So what actually does have to happen for you to get it? How easy is it to catch on a scale of 1 to 10?
So it's as easy to catch as a normal virus.
All right.
So here's the deal. The way this is being deployed right now, this is a memory corruption in the Windows scripting engine. So you have to click a link. You have to click on something that will kick this off. So yeah, you don't click on anything that you shouldn't be. And you'll be pretty safe from this, but you do want to go patch. There's a patch for it.
See last week's show. Don't click anything.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So it just comes down to it. My mom sent, Mama Franklin, she's getting on in years, and she constantly forwards hoaxes to me saying, what should I do about this? Right. And this one was some sort of, thank you for your purchase.
Yeah.
Here's your receipt for, $10,000 or whatever it is.
Right.
And it's a PDF. And I wrote back, whatever you do, don't open it. She goes, I already did.
Yeah. Ooh.
So I had to have a come to Jesus meeting with her. Just say, look, here's the rule. Never click on anything, especially if you don't recognize it. If you have a question, call me, but don't click on it.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Are we ready for speaking of clicking, the clickbait story here?
Yes.
Okay. The story headline is Major Backdoor in Millions of RFID Cards Allows Instant Cloning. But the first thing that we should differentiate is RFID versus NFC. What's the difference here?
Oh, that's a great question. So NFC, near field communications, RFID, radio RF frequency identifier, radio frequency identifier. Mm-hmm. So RFID, think longer range. So it's can be 10
inventory
meters
management
away. Yeah, exactly.
Your car remote
away.
Uses
your car
RFID
remote
sometimes.
Yep. It could be an access card of some sort. It could be these little chips that you put on inventory tracking, that sort of stuff. So RFID is like longer distance.
Yeah.
And RFID is usually one way. It's not receiving anything, right? It's just transmitting.
NFC is both ways then.
Yeah, near field communications, right? So it near field means couple centimeters. We're not talking feet away.
Yeah.
And you do have the potential of doing bidirectional communication. So they seem very similar. They're both still radio communications. They're designed for different applications.
Dwayne, do you remember a dozen years ago or more that people made Bluetooth guns?
Oh, heck yeah.
You could stand on the top of a building and shoot it down and try to do a Bluetooth connection to someone's phone on their hip when people had like holsters.
Right, exactly.
Is there anything like that for NFID, RFID, or anything like that, where you could try to read it from farther away?
So here's the problem with this. Both the RFID is a passive technology, so there's no real battery in it. What's happening with RFID is
so you'd have to broadcast energy from that distance to do it.
You'd have to shoot a lightning bolt from the tip of that gun to the person's hip where they're holding the RFID card, and then you might be able to read it, but you might cook them as well. And RFID can go up to 100 meters. So could you, with a very sensitive antenna, pick it up? Yeah, I think you could. I think you could pick up RFID from a distance. NFCs or near field communication, you wouldn't, right? You're not going to pick up near field communication.
Why? Just because they drop off so quickly?
Yeah, and I'd have to look into...
Because it's not like radio waves stop.
It's low power, though. It's low power enough to require the short distance.
Yeah, and it depends on the frequency, right? So if it's a super long wave, it can go much further than a really, really small wave. right? Really, really small waves require massive amounts of power to go long distances.
Right.
So you keep the wave short, maybe in the gigahertz range, or the high megahertz range, and you keep the power source super low, and you're just not going to go far enough to hear it.
So it's just not enough to detect. Basically, the air would get in the way of it over the distance that you would be.
In really long waves, you would hear, wouldn't you?
Depends.
Yeah, depends. A great answer. It depends. Like 160 meter wave. I mean, that's a big wave. You can't hear it.
The whales might hear it.
That's short ham radio, but short in the shortwave radio communications range. And that you can bounce off the ionosphere, and that can go all the way around the world and
can go through bricks.
Yeah. Yep.
Brick walls, whatever. All right. So, is this really the big deal that it appears to be? What actually happened?
Pretty big deal. So many. So the MyFair Classic cards, which is what we're talking about, are common. You probably, if you've stayed at a hotel more than once this year, you've probably had a room key that used this technology specifically, or something similar to it. And they've had a lot of vulnerabilities over the years. It's not like it's been like a rock solid, but this one, it's kind of a misnomer because they say instant, and then they go on in the article several times to say if you have a couple of minutes of access to the key. And Dwayne's experience bears that out with his flipper.
I was going to say, every time I clone a hotel room key, it usually takes a minute or two, right?
Exactly.
It's not super fast.
Yeah.
Which I do every time I travel. I clone the hotel room key.
And they've mentioned specifically that this vulnerability is card only if more than 3 sectors of the card are encrypted with the same nonce, the same random bits.
Even if it's honestly, it's not really hard to not be card only. Like, card only just means you only need the card to decrypt it. And if they're encrypted with the same nonce, generally in a chain block cipher, the nonce is used, or the initialization vector is used.
Isn't nonce like my neighbor down the street who was arrested for molesting children or something?
Nonce. My name is Nonce.
Nonce is like a random bit of fluff that you use in
the UK. That's what it means, though. It means like a predator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Random bit of data.
Here it's just a random bit of wacky data, just like an initialization vector, or a entropy used in encryption.
Yeah.
But so card only means the nonce doesn't add enough entropy to the encryption where you can decrypt it with the card only. However, let's say they have a pretty decent nonce. Well, how do you crack the card then? What you do is you read the card, and then you actually go to a reader. So if I were at a hotel bar and somebody put their card down, and I, put my reader on it and I read the card, and it's not a card only reader, then I can go to the door, or any door in the hotel, and tell it read the door, and it picks up all of the initialization and nonces and that sort of stuff, and then at that point it'll pair it together, and then I can so there are ways, even if it's not
basically
card only,
the reader will leak you some information that'll get you the rest of the way.
Yep, exactly.
All right. So to answer the question, RFID is not indeed broken.
No.
This implementation is.
Yeah.
Let's see. If you go into, so this was discovered by, was it French researchers?
Well, and it's a specific vendor. It's a Chinese vendor.
Yeah, there you go. The Backdoor documented in a research paper by Quark Labs. So if you read through that paper, actually, it's an interesting paper. It's 33 pages. But the abstract for that says, MyFair Classic smart cards developed and licensed by NXP are widely used and have been subject to numerous attacks over the years. Despite the introduction of new versions, these cards have remained vulnerable, even in card-only scenarios. In 2020, the FM11 RF08S, a new variant of the MyFair Classic, was licensed MyFair-compatible chips. This variant features specific countermeasures designed to thwart all known card-only attacks and is gradually gaining market share. In this paper, we present several attacks and unexpected findings regarding the FM11 RF08S. Through empirical research, we discover a hardware backdoor and successfully crack its keys. These backdoor enables an entity with knowledge of it to compromise all user-defined keys on these cards without prior knowledge, simply by accessing the card for a few minutes. Additionally, our investigation into older cards uncovered another hardware backdoor key that was common to several manufacturers. So what's interesting is it looks like the the way that in 2020 these new cards came out, and they had some form of countermeasures, and doesn't look like it's actually holding up. So just be careful with your hotel room keys. Generally, that's what these are used for.
So if you're at the hotel bar and you're with Dwayne, you put your hotel key down on the table, and he puts a Tamagotchi down on top of it. You say, "Hey, what are you doing?" And you have approximately 2 minutes to get that thing away from Dwayne.
You spill your drink on them at that point.
Yeah.
You spill your drink on them, and then you put your bag down that has the Tamagotchi in the bottom right on their card and say, "Oh, let me clean that up. Oh, do you have some more napkins?" And while you're doing that, say, "I'm so sorry. Let me buy you the next drink." Oh, no, it's problem. Okay, thanks. And then you take it, and now they haven't noticed it. You have to create a
distraction.
However, listen, what would that do in a hotel room? Like, you could get into somebody's hotel room. There are so many ways to get into a hotel room without the keys.
Right.
Like, there are tons of bypasses.
I need my key. I'm sorry. I left my...
And there's also social engineering the staff to open it up.
Social engineering's always a good one. But there are simple bypasses, too, to get by. You know, that little... that little slide lock you have in hotel room keys. I mean, seriously.
Dwayne, come on now.
All right. Maybe next time.
Control yourself.
I've seen some really good demonstrations on how to get past that.
Oh, yeah.
All right. We're going to leave that up to your imagination. But on that note, we'll see you next week.
It's good to be back.
Good to have you back. Bye, guys.